The biker gang roared down the quiet street, engines rumbling like thunder, leather jackets gleaming in the afternoon sun. But as they slowed near a cracked alleyway, one of them noticed a little girl standing by the curb, clutching a cardboard sign that read, "Duke, good dog. $50 or best offer." Beside her sat a German shepherd, wagging his tail weakly, his ribs painfully visible. The girl's voice trembled as she looked up at the biker. "Please, sir. Will you buy him? My mommy hasn't eaten in 2 days." The biker froze, his hand tightening on the handlebars. "Where's your mom, kid?" he asked softly. What she said next made his blood run cold. And by the end of that day, every single biker in the gang would be on a mission that changed their lives forever. Engines rumbled down the quiet road as the Hellhawks, a group of hardened bikers, rolled into the small town. Their leader, Jack Dawson, had seen every kind of trouble life could throw at a person. But nothing prepared him for what he was about to witness. Outside a rundown gas station, a little girl stood alone on the sidewalk, clutching a piece of torn cardboard. The sign read, "Duke, good dog. $50 or best offer." Beside her sat a thin German shepherd, his eyes full of loyalty and hunger. Jack slowed his bike, frowning. "What's a kid doing out here like that?" he muttered under his breath. He dismounted and approached slowly, his heavy boots crunching against the gravel. The girl looked up, startled but brave. "You selling your dog, sweetheart?" he asked gently. Her voice shook as she answered. "Yes, sir. I don't want to. But my mommy hasn't eaten in 2 days." The crew went silent. Even the loudest engines couldn't hide the lump forming in their throats. Jack crouched down, extending his rough hand to Duke. The dog placed his paw gently in it, as if asking for help. Jack looked back at his men, his voice quiet but firm. "Boys, we're not leaving until we figure out what's going on here." And that's where everything changed. Jack knelt beside the little girl, his rough hands softening as he looked into her tired eyes. "What's your name, sweetheart?" he asked. "Emma," she whispered, brushing dirt from her cheek. "And this is Duke. He's a really good dog." Duke wagged his tail weakly, pressing close to her side, as if he understood every word. Jack nodded slowly. "Emma, why are you out here trying to sell your dog?" Her voice trembled as she answered. "Mommy's sick. We live in our car now. She hasn't eaten in 2 days, and I thought if I sell Duke, maybe she can have food." The men standing around Jack fell completely silent. Big, tattooed bikers who'd seen fights, wars, and prison. Yet this little girl's words hit harder than anything they'd ever faced. One of the men swallowed hard. "Kid, you don't gotta sell your dog," he said softly. Emma shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "Mommy says good people always find a way. Maybe you're good people." Jack felt his throat tighten. He looked at Duke again. Loyal. Calm. Trusting. Then back at Emma. "All right," Jack said finally, standing up. "We're going to find your mom." Emma's eyes widened in disbelief. "You'll really help?" Jack nodded, starting his bike. "Yeah, sweetheart. Nobody should have to sell their best friend just to survive." And with that, the Hellhawks had a new mission. One that would change everything. The sun dipped low as the Hellhawks followed Emma through the outskirts of town, their roaring engines echoing off empty streets. She guided them to an abandoned parking lot on the edge of a junkyard. In the corner sat an old rusted car with shattered windows and a tattered blanket covering the back seat. "That's where we live," Emma said softly, pointing toward it. Jack killed the engine, his heart twisting. He approached the car slowly and peered inside. A frail woman lay curled up on the seat, her face pale, her lips dry and cracked. "Mommy, wake up," Emma whispered, tugging gently on her sleeve. The woman's eyes fluttered open, and fear flashed across them when she saw the bikers standing there. "Please," she croaked, her voice barely audible. "We don't have anything left to steal." Jack knelt beside her, his tone surprisingly gentle. "We're not here to take anything, ma'am. We're here to help." The woman's name was Maria. She'd been surviving on water for days after losing her job. Her husband had died in a workplace accident, and his insurance money had been stolen by his corrupt boss. "I begged him to pay what he owed us," she said weakly. "He just laughed and said people like us don't matter." Jack's eyes darkened. "What's his name?" he asked quietly. She hesitated, then whispered. "Victor Crane." The name hit Jack like a punch to the chest. He stood slowly, his jaw tight. "Boys," he said, his voice low with barely controlled anger. "I know that name." The crew exchanged grim looks. This wasn't just charity anymore. This was justice. If this story touches your heart, please share it with someone who believes in standing up for what's right. That night, the Hellhawks garage buzzed with energy. The air smelled of oil and simmering anger as Jack paced between the rows of motorcycles, his fists clenched. The name Victor Crane kept echoing in his head. Years ago, Crane had crushed Jack's construction business, framing him for theft to win a lucrative contract. Jack had lost everything. His house. His job. His dignity. Now Crane had destroyed another family's life. Jack looked at his men, his voice steady but filled with fire. "Crane's been taking from the weak for too long. Tonight, we take something back." The crew revved their engines, black leather glinting under the flickering lights. They tore through the streets like rolling thunder until they reached Crane's glass mansion perched at the top of the hill. Guards rushed out, shouting threats, but the Hellhawks moved like a storm. Swift. Unstoppable. Within minutes, Jack stood inside Crane's luxurious office. The billionaire's smug grin faded fast. "You think you can scare me, Dawson?" Crane sneered. Jack dropped a thick folder onto the desk. "Photos. Documents. Proof of unpaid wages and fraud. You don't scare easy, huh?" Jack said quietly, leaning in close. "Good. Then you'll feel this more." He locked eyes with Crane. "You stole from a child's father. Now I'm here to collect." Crane's smirk vanished. Justice had finally found him. The morning sun broke through the clouds as the roar of motorcycles echoed once again through the quiet streets. Jack parked his bike near the abandoned car where Emma sat petting Duke, her small hands shaking from the cold. When she saw him, her eyes lit up like stars. "You came back," she said, running to him. Jack smiled faintly and handed her a small envelope. "This is for your mom." Emma tilted her head. "What is it?" Jack crouched beside her. "Something your dad worked hard for. And something a bad man tried to keep." Inside the envelope were thick stacks of bills and official documents. Her father's stolen wages. And a deed for a small apartment nearby. Maria gasped when she saw them, tears streaming down her face. How did you?" Jack shook his head. "Don't worry about that, ma'am. Just promise me you'll start over." Duke barked happily as the crew unloaded groceries and blankets from their bikes. Emma threw her arms around Jack's neck. "Thank you, Mr. Jack." He smiled, his tough voice cracking just a little. "You don't thank people for doing what's right, sweetheart." For the first time in years, Jack felt something he hadn't known he'd lost. Peace. Weeks later, a local news station aired a headline that spread across the internet like wildfire. "Biker gang rescues homeless mother and daughter. Brings corrupt businessman to justice." The story showed photos of Emma and her mother smiling in front of their new apartment, Duke sitting proudly beside them, tail wagging. Reporters tried to track down Jack and the Hellhawks, but the crew stayed silent, refusing interviews. "We didn't do it for attention," Jack said quietly to one journalist who caught him at a diner. "We did it because no one else would." That night, the crew gathered at the garage. Duke bounded in through the open door, barking playfully before jumping into Jack's lap. "Looks like we made a friend for life," one of the bikers laughed. Jack smiled softly, rubbing the dog's head. "Nah. He's got his family now." A few days later, Jack received a letter written in a child's handwriting. It read, "Dear Mr. Jack, Mommy and I are safe. Duke is happy. Someday I want to help people too, just like you." Jack folded the letter carefully and slipped it into his jacket pocket. As the Hellhawks roared into the sunset, his voice echoed one final thought. You can't fix the whole world. But sometimes, saving one family is enough to save yourself. If this incredible story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful true stories that prove compassion and courage can change everything.